OMG. That was crazy and something I haven't had happen in a really long time. Hi, welcome back to Plus This. I'm Kathy Deach. I'm sorry to be a tad bit late. You know, I've been really spoiled getting here in 7.5 minutes because I actually do live very close to the studio. But it was standstill as soon as I pulled on, and it ends up there was a crime and a police force checking the side of the road for a weapon and helicopters. It was insanity. Thank you for your patience with me, and I have to thank my guest for her patience. I mean, all I want to do is talk to her, which is why I wanted her all to myself today. She's the U.S. editor of SLiNK Magazine, which is, if you don't know it, please get familiar. It's just so hot and beautiful and like the quality that fat women deserve. And she put together a kick-ass edition with being down in quarantine, like being on lockdown. And I was so proud that she asked me to take part, and like the company I'm keeping is amazing. We're going to talk more about that. She also is like raising money and has a hashtag quarantine couture, and we're going to show you pictures of that because why not? Please welcome my guest, Renee Cafaro. Hi, girl.
Hey!
I'm so
How are
glad.
you?
I'm so glad to see you all blinged out and making me happy. I really
Oh
I
yeah.
like turned out my look today for you. I was like, I'm gonna bring my leather and gold and my leopard.
I mean, if it wasn't 9 p.m. right now, I would probably be wearing leather and leopard as well. But just the casual rhinestone tracksuit.
I mean, it's
Really
fabulous, as is the painting.
comfortable for being, a rhinestone tracksuit. So
That's
this is
hard. That's actually hard. Blinged
it's
out
hard
stuff
to
is hard
find.
to keep comfy. Yeah.
I know. I've been trying to find stuff that's fashionable and doesn't make me feel like totally like I'm wearing pajamas, but is comfortable enough to me stay in quarantine forever.
I know,
It's tough. It's very
forever.
tough.
Forever and ever. And I love that painting in the background. Like, you highlight your space so beautifully. It makes me want to stay overnight. Like, I want to hang out and have a sleepover.
I wish that you could come have a sleepover. I've actually been thinking a lot about making a pillow fort, um, and
Yes.
having my own slumber party, in here because I'm getting a little bored. I have not left my apartment at all since March 15th.
Yeah. And just to be clear, you are in Manhattan. You are in New York City.
I am in New York City, and
Yeah.
I get to look at a wonderful city that is dormant right now, and it's weird to miss the city I'm currently in, but that's the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. That is, a lot of my New York friends, I'm sorry, things are beeping and I want them to stop. Um, Things are hard in New York, I think, especially because part of it is the movement, and the fact that it's not moving is really like taking people aback. It's
Yeah,
one of the
I,
things people love about it.
I mean, true, and I mean, I'm extremely fortunate that I have the apartment that I have. I think most people in New York need a special prize at the end of this, like to get some sort of bonus, get something for the like strength it takes to be, with roommates or in like a studio apartment for months on end. I mean, most people come to New York just they don't care if they live in a shoebox. The point is, you're outside. You're out of your house most of the day. Like I rarely ever saw my apartment for the longest time. I'd always be, triple booked, running around doing things, experiencing the city, and it's just so weird to feel like I'm clearly home and this is home, but feel so far away.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is that someone as busy as you, as like everywhere anyone needs you to be at any time, not just in New York, but in the world. Like, you are an incredible world traveler and have like, if people don't know her Instagram, you have to run because it is just delicious. Her travel logging, I just am obsessed with it. Um,
Thank you.
but people don't know, and I think that this is like really important to talk about, is that you're immune compromised. So that's why you've been so careful and haven't left the house at all. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's actually May is Arthritis Awareness Month, so I'm happy to talk about it for any of my friends who are immunocompromised out there that are watching. I feel you. This is a very, very, very hard time. At the beginning of quarantine, I think it was literally like the first week. People were already coming out just like pissed off that we're closing things down, and how dare we, because the economy matters more, and it's just this 3% that is in danger of dying. And I'm like, not only can we shouldn't be saying that the elderly are disposable, but also in that 3% are people like 54 million Americans who live with arthritis like myself. It's not my choice to have this. This isn't anyone's choice. You become compromised from a whole host of issues, and to be talked about like we aren't here and like we aren't listening is scary. It sometimes that stress causes flare ups, so now we're in more pain. A lot of us are having trouble being able to keep up with our treatment, which is making things worse. So this is really not a great time to have arthritis. So I've been trying to be as open about this on Foxy Roxy Fashion and any of my social media channels as I can, to sort of normalize the ups and downs, not only mentally but physically, that comes with living with a chronic pain disorder.
Yeah, I think that people think that it looks a certain way, that it is a certain age, that it is a certain ability, right? Like they think that thing that we think of as immunocompromised has a look to it, much like people think fat people are unwell and all that,
Oh, and I
all the
can't
things.
tell you how many people have actually asked, like, oh, but like, if you lost some weight, do you think, you wouldn't be in so much pain? Look, the arthritis did not come to me because I'm fat. It started when I was 11 years old, and back when I was much thinner. And, it hits people of all sizes, all ages. 300,000 patients right now are children. People get it at birth. I have friends who are, marathoners who have it. So it affects everybody, and it's the number one disability in the nation, and no one really talks about it because it's seen as grandma's aches and pains, as we call it.
Yeah.
You see Tylenol arthritis. That's a very different thing. Osteoarthritis is still very painful, but can be handled a different way. This is what I'm talking about. Is degenerative. It affects your immune system. It can be, crippling, and it really robs people of their daily lives. I mean, to get really real with you, last week I just like felt really defeated because I couldn't open jars.
Oh.
Like, and with quarantine food and stuff like that, like I have a lot of canned stuff. I have a lot of jars, and it's like if I really forced it, I could like work the can opener. But the fact that I even have to think about like
Right.
mustering the courage to like like what can I open? I don't have the mental and physical capacity today because the cold front came in randomly and we like had a hailstorm, and I'm very susceptible to pressure changes.
Mm.
So I had a really, really bad flare up. Everything swelled up, and I was in excruciating pain. And basically, like, I'm like, I'm starving, but I can't move my jaw. I can't open any of the food. And like, the only thing I could manage to open was some cottage cheese. And that was like what food was for a couple of days.
Mm.
And so and then I've also finished the 4 half marathons in my life.
Right.
So,
right.
it really depends. It's not something that will cripple you forever, but there is a lot of ebbs and flows to it, which is actually what makes it so hard for people to understand what it is, because I can't tell you how many times in my life people have told me, well, you look fine.
Yes, I'm sure. And that's something that I think people who have disabilities also are trying to fight for the rights for. I know there's a whole thing happening in Massachusetts. A friend of ours of the show in California is starting it too, to get, a better Disabilities Act, like to get, size, height, whether they're invisible or not. We have to take care of the most vulnerable. And I think that this whole this pandemic has really brought all of this to the surface, that a lot of people have been kind of like whatevering their whole life away. I will say that you came out very early on with a great article in Huffington Post about the fat shaming and about like the please with the quarantine 15, like enough with the memes. And then this week, which is another reason I'm sure this puts stress on people, and I'm sure this is part of your stress, Nancy Pelosi, you know, uses the words morbidly obese, and then it's like Pandora's box everywhere. Like everyone feels like, oh, if she did it, well, then I have permission to say what I want. Now, I'm actually trying to craft a letter to her because I think that it's actually an opportunity. I think that it's an opportunity to sort of sneak in and be like, see, this is actually what you did when you did that.
Yeah, so it's funny that you say that because actually, I posted something. I should learn to not post things on Facebook because it's always going to bite you in the ass. But, I posted about that, and I came from a political background for 14 years, but then now I'm in body positivity. So I have clearly all of my friends are like in one camp or the other that really that Nancy Pelosi situation would, um, you know, it would be of interest to both sides of my friend groups, and I got a very weird response to it. The Pelosi thing also ties into the immunocompromised thing a little bit, and I'll tell you why. Because what she said was that he shouldn't be taking hydrochloroquine because he's older, and that it's not going to work because he's overweight and or morbidly obese is what she said, which insinuates that hydrochloroquine is not effective for people over a certain weight, which is not true. It's technically known as Plaquenil, is the brand name. And Plaquenil is given to people with lupus and arthritis all the time. I know tons of people on it of all kinds of weights, and it does what it's supposed to do. Why not just say taking this crazy medication that's not been proven to prevent coronavirus is nuts? Don't take it.
Period.
But instead we went with morbidly obese, and so many people that were in the body pos world, that were in the political world, were all just kind of like coming on me, being like, this is just, it's fair game. He's terrible. He's the worst. We got to hit him where it hurts. And yeah, I think he's the absolute worst. I think Trump is the biggest disgrace to ever happen to the United States of America, or possibly the world. But
agreed. I'm on the same page as that.
But so I'm not coming to his defense. But I just don't like hypocrites either. I spend a lot of time talking about fat phobia in the medical community and how we're constantly talking about weight when we should be talking about efficacy of drugs and talking about other health issues. And that's exactly what Nancy Pelosi did. She pulled the same old thing where it's just like we make fat the marquee issue, not, I don't know, any one of 10 million horrible things Trump has actually done.
Exactly.
We've decided to focus on what he looks like. And so many people said that we need to, hit him the way he hits others, and taking the high road is how Democrats lose. And like, I get that we need to come after him hard, but is this how we need to do it?
No, and this isn't about high road, is it? I mean, that's actually not. That doesn't make any sense. This isn't like going below the belt. Like, go below the belt, go after his family, which are a bunch of criminals. You know what I mean? Like this is not going below the belt. This is hurting a bunch of Americans by ostracizing people who also identify as quote unquote morbidly obese by a medical industry that is completely biased against them. So it's like it's not equal. Yeah, and I want to write the letter saying, Nancy, just like, and if she's watching, maybe I could send this clip to her person. Just like the president's words matter, you're the Speaker of the House. Your words matter. And even if it was done innocently, she has been interviewed 4,000 times since then, and she never came back and was like, I'm really sorry for the fat phobia I unleashed across this country. Because that's actually what her words do.
Yeah, and I mean, what we really need to focus on is the fact that, what I've learned just in my small microcosm of friends, which I was shocked about, woke people feeling this way, is that essentially, if we don't like the guy, it's fair game. So it's like, yeah, like hit him with the fat phobia jokes. Fat phobia works for some people, but doesn't work for others. And it's like, again, I hate hypocrisy. I cannot, on principle, allow this to go on, because we can't say that fat phobia is okay in certain cases, because that where does it end? Who's the judge of that? And we know damn well that if it were him saying that somebody else shouldn't take the medication, if he was saying, Oprah, don't take this pill because you're morbidly obese, oh, that's a fact. I'm factually talking about your health, and try to talk about how it's fact-based that it's that she is overweight. So he's allowed to say that, which is what people are saying about Pelosi, that she's allowed to say it because it's a fact that he is fat. Fact or no fact, like the tone of it is wrong. And if it was somebody else, if it was directed towards a woman, if it was directed towards Oprah, we would be up in arms about it.
Exactly.
But we're not, because we hate Trump. And it's like, why should the hatred of a guy change how we feel on an issue, especially for those of us who are supposed to be mouthpieces for this issue?
Exactly. I agree with all of that. And I think that, again, it's an opportunity to organize. It's an opportunity to galvanize. It's an opportunity to say, hey, I'm going to write this letter. I'm going to actually write my thoughts down about how this is actually harmful to me. And telling your friends, seeing, as you said, it's not people I don't know. The left really, really loves BMI. The left thinks the rest of it, every other thing is, a consumerist, a capitalist way of life that I want to change and uproot. But that BMI is real. And that anyone who has a higher level of BMI at this point it's all their fault, that they're trash people. Do you know what I mean?
That's a whole other show, but I can definitely come to you. I could definitely come at you with a lot of statistics and a lot of history behind where BMI came from, and how it's been proven time and again to not only be debunked on its correlation to health, but also that there's a lot of studies out there who feel that it has been used as a manipulative tool to have medical discrimination towards minority groups, who are usually overweight and bigger on the BMI scale, and that this is sort of a, for lack of a better term, like legal or scientific way to sort of cover a bigotry.
To marginalize,
So there's actually, that's a whole other thing, and I've been actually crafting a thought piece on it for a while, but I've been reticent to do so because I don't really know, I don't want to be white-splaining a minority issue. And so I want to do it in collaboration with folks, who might have experienced that kind of discrimination, not just because of the color of their skin, but using BMI as that tool. So I've read a lot on that issue, but I think that's something that's a whole other thing we can talk about some other time.
Yeah. And we have done it on here over and over again, because when it's an astronomer from the 1860s that created that scale to begin with and said it should never be used for deciding whether someone's healthy or not. I mean, yes, I think you're absolutely right. It was manipulated, and we can talk about that another time. I want to talk about more fun things. So let's take a really quick break, like literally 30 seconds, just so I can get some water in my mouth so I'm not like mealy mouth. And we're going to come back and we're going to talk about your quarantine couture and such when we return with Plus This. After show, hopefully we have 10 people. 10 people giving $5
on the Patreon.
If 10 people give $5 a month, we could do a whole season without getting money from people we don't trust. Isn't that nice? Guys, I'm literally trying to pimp myself to dating apps to try to get us money.
Ooh.
I'm scared. Don't make me do that.
Ooh.
Just give us $5. I just sing for my supper, y'all. Singing for my supper. Thank you. Actually, last week we had a couple people actually feel so moved by our Patreon jingle that they became Patreons. So thank you for that. And as always, this can't happen without your support, and I really do appreciate it. Okay, you are killing it in quarantine with your couture. And I wish my apartment was clean enough to live up to, like, I have things I can wear, but in quarantine, one of the things I guess I've done is sort of not care about where things go. I was living on top of laundry for like 4 weeks, and then I finally put stuff away, and I finally got a bag together to donate. But I mean, Are you inspired by where you live now that, and you said that you want to create like a pup tent and have like a a cushion castle in your house, but do you feel like actually at the beginning you were like, oh, my place is actually really beautiful and I'm excited to make these little vignettes of me in couture inside?
I actually, yeah, I love my apartment. I built it out to sort of be an event space. I'd show you around a little bit more, but I too am really messy. So I clean up just enough for the Zoom and for the hot content. But yeah, trying to pack things up and get things ready has been tough around here and trying to get things organized. But I do love it, and I'm really lucky that I have so much absurd stuff that makes for good Instagram, because I am very flamboyant with my
Like the giant bear. We have a
like
picture
the
of
giant
that.
bear. The giant bear. Actually, the funny story is it comes from my mom's insanity of being also flamboyant.
I love
When I
that.
moved into here 10 years ago from an old apartment, and it was much. My old apartment was like the size of the bathroom of this place. The old apartment was like really small. So, I had like one of those big like VCR, CD, like or DVD like TVs that were the old school like
Right,
shitty
right.
box TVs. So I'd ask them like, "Oh, you can get me a TV for like a housewarming gift," and this huge bear shows up, and I'm like, "Okay." She's like, "Well, everybody has a TV, but who would have a 6-foot doorman bear?" I mean, which is a fair point, but that's something nobody has. But yeah, it's been kind of my mascot, as has the big chair, the Alice in Wonderland chair. That was in the picture with me wearing the suit. It's been in a lot of pictures because it's sort of the main thing in my apartment. And behind me is some body pause right there. Ashley Longshore, one of my favorite artists, favorite humans on the planet. It's a piece of hers. It's Coco Chanel.
Beautiful. I've seen her paint stuff live. Like she's done
Oh, she's
videos.
amazing.
She is
She
amazing.
is a plus size queen, just a queen in general. And she's like the coolest. And I got to interview her for SLiNK, and I just love her to death. So I finally own some of her stuff. But I really just kind of figured like I'd have to get really creative. And I have so much wild stuff that I never really get a chance to wear. Like I've had crazy hats and all this other stuff. And I thought it'd be really hilarious to do this thing called quarantine couture and just like give it all that sort of VIP glam. Most of my Instagram, for those who don't follow me, just like fair warning, most of what I do is pretty tongue in cheek. I'm either getting like super real with you, or like I'm kind of just being like really snarky about the whole like influencer thing, which I think is sort of silly.
I love the Swiffer, you in a full gown swiffing
Yes,
and
exactly. Like
lysoling.
Swiffer. And the very first one installation was some Dolce and Gabbana that I had to mail back I had to mail it back to 11 Honore because the day that quarantine happened for New York, we were actually supposed to be doing a huge photo shoot for SLiNK. So I had all this stuff in my apartment ready to go to a photo shoot that we had to end up canceling. And so before I packed up all these amazing spring fashions, that's how it started. I decided to take pictures of all these amazing items of clothing and all this actual couture. And so the very first thing was me in full Dolce and Gabbana head to toe holding Dinty Moore beef stew. And I was like, Dinty by Dolce was the very first one. I also did Goya beans by Gucci.
You had all the canned goods all ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. I got all the canned goods and all the couture. What more could a girl ask for? But if you can't.
I want to ask you though. This happens to you. This comes to you, the quarantine, and like you said, you're ready to produce an issue, and
whole other issue.
it's a whole other issue.
As you know, because I called you frantically. So SLiNK, had to pivot really quickly for a few reasons. Obviously, we couldn't finish our photo shoots because we had to be socially distant, but also it just, I was talking to Rivki, our editor in chief in London, and they hadn't locked down yet. We were locked down already, but London hadn't been. And we decided, like, the world is going to change, and we need to give our readers content that makes sense, content that has compassion, content that's useful. It's completely tone deaf to give them our usual fun, luxury, jet set, fashion in a time where people are so uncertain and scared for their jobs, scared for their lives. It just didn't seem right. It didn't sit right with us. So we did our very first completely free digital issue, because we also gave away free ad space to small businesses that needed a boost.
Which was so cool.
And I thought that was really awesome, and I reached out to a ton of people, and I'm like, this is what we can pay. I did it out of pocket, because you had to do it really quickly and on a shoestring budget, because we didn't have advertisers. But we came up with nearly 100 pages of incredible content, from what to binge watch, to your piece that I love too. And we're talking about taking breaks from unplugging, and then how to organize your spaces. We had best loungewear. I mean, just incredible things that we're able to get all these perspectives so quickly. But the thing I was most impressed with has to be the cover in our editorials. This is the first time we've done an entire issue with everybody solo quarantine. So we had to ask for submissions. We were looking for editorial submissions, which 99% of things probably would never cut it for SLiNK, especially for Ripkey. Like, very strong
right. Yeah,
what our SLiNK aesthetic is. We spent so much time coming up with what it was supposed to look like. And I talked to Lydia Hudgens, who's the one who shot the editorial that ended up in the cover, and also she has another one in there that's this gorgeous thing of nudes of all sizes, a very like artsy, blurry, like nudes dancing. It's fabulous. Our site is still up. The issue is still up. If you go to SLiNK Magazine, the Instagram, you'll be able to find the link. You can download it and read the issue.
And we'll link it here too. If anybody at home wants to link in the comments, they're commenting, by the way. People are chit-chatterati.
Oh, cool.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. My sister, if she's watching, will do it. She's the best.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And Matt Sales, who lives in LA, who's a good friend of mine, he did another one of our submissions for an editorial, and it was just fabulous to see what people had kind of laying around that they had worked on recently with models and fabulous teams that hadn't been published anywhere else. And so in a matter of days, we were able to basically put everything else on hold while I'm in quarantine. Our London team's trying to lock down and move and do all this stuff. And I can't thank everyone enough for all the work that they put into it. And it was really great. And I think it sets the right tone for the kind of stuff that I like to do, which is something that's useful, something that's inspiring. We talk on hard issues like how to deal with panic, but we also show you some trends. So it's a really good blend of getting really real with you, but also having stuff that's really light. And I love the altruism behind, helping out small businesses as well. So it was weird to do our first, totally free digital issue in like 72 hours, but it was
Anna.
Really exhilarating. It's exhilarating to see what people can do in quarantine. I am endlessly impressed with people's creativity.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about moving forward. I mean, Vanity Fair had a lot of nerve and just published these unbelievable pictures of Catherine O'Hara. I think we have them to show you guys at home if you're watching on video. If you're not, you have to Google it while you're listening to the podcast to get your eyeballs in. They were done by drone, and I just am all about it. I mean, obviously she lives in a beautiful place and that's kind of easy for her to manage, but I feel like this drone thing has a lot of potential. I mean, it really, and also even the Zoom, maybe people aren't even using Zoom. They're using other streaming opportunities, photographers, to take shots. Are you guys looking forward to your next issue being sort of in that ilk? Like, how are you guys being creative as you move forward?
Yeah, we actually just sent in my sort of pitch and ideas of what the fall issue should look like. We're going to assume that we're going to probably be back in quarantine from the second wave, probably for the fall. And but even if not, I mean, it's tough to do print right now with her, distribution and the safety of people going to these stores to get the stuff might be up in the air. So I think digital makes the most sense. And drones is not something I really thought about. I both, Matt Sales and Lydia both did these FaceTime photo shoots. I was actually the subject of one of them for Matt, so I got to see how it works. It's really cool. Where basically he would put his phone on a white background and then sort of direct me through FaceTime and take pictures. And so he does this whole series, and he shot people for Vanity Fair and for all kinds of really amazing shows and Entertainment Weekly. So he has like some celebrities in this thing as well, which is pretty cool. So I'm like very honored to be in such great company. But to do that through FaceTime was something I didn't expect, and I didn't feel like I was disconnected from him at all. I felt like he was in the room and directing me.
That's
and I'm
amazing.
not used to being directed. I'm not someone who's usually in front of the camera. So or somebody else's cameras. So there's definitely ways to do this kind of photo shoots remotely. I think we could probably be looking towards that. But sneak peek. I'll just tell you guys and all of your wonderful your followers. But it's going to be our 10th year. So as SLiNK. So there also might be some really fun throwbacks too in this next issue. We'll see.
That's fun. I mean, you have been nailing it throughout the years. Whenever anyone puts a Throwback Thursday photo from SLiNK, or even one that I'm like, oh, gorgeous, and someone's like, that's SLiNK. I'm like, of course it is. Like, duh. It's like anything that I'm obsessed with is totally SLiNK.
Yeah, well, the fun fact about it that I always think is really amazing, a great fun fact, is that Tess Holliday found out that she was going to get signed on the set of her very first editorial shoot. It was for SLiNK.
Look at that. That's incredible. That's incredible. I love that. I want to take another quick break because we have to talk about the Sunset Strip and music. And I want to also answer some questions that people may have. So this is a longer break. Oh, I should probably set it up because there's no setup. I'm a part of a sketch comedy group called Fatch, and we love each other so much and think we're so funny when we Skype each other. Or we don't Skype. No one's Skyping, house party, whatever app you're using, that we're like, people should totally see us. So we recorded it. And this is like a little segment. We're doing that on Tuesdays at 7:30. But here's a little clip for you to one of our first attempts at this.
Hi, girls. What's up, Fatch? Hi, Nikki.
Hello.
How's everybody doing with all this pandemic stuff?
I'm good. I'm Gloria, in case everyone forgot.
Who could forget you?
A lot of people.
Oh,
It's Cinco de Mayo. No one forgets Gloria.
no one.
No one.
The Mexicans were victorious over the French.
Oh, is that what Cinco de Mayo is for?
It is not Independence Day. Cinco de Mayo is the Battle of Puebla, where the Mexican people were victorious, overthrowing the French colonizers. But then the Spanish were still there. So.
All right. Well, you can't get rid of all your colonizers at once. What are you gonna do?
It's like it's a battle, but everyone just thinks of it as like the biggest Mexican holiday. But the Mexican Independence Day is actually September 16th.
Nice. See, you learn something. Yep. What? See, Thatch, we don't just entertain. We educate. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Renee, a lot of people were talking about their feelings of rage against the orange Cheeto. That's what we call him in Fatch. In charge, the Cheeto in chief. But they also said, like, in that instinct to want to, like, be really base, they were like, whoa. So people were agreeing with you, but they were talking about how it was hard.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, he's the worst, and you want to just, like, hit him as low as you can, and all bets are off because that's how he treats everyone else, and you feel that you should give them a taste of their own medicine. But like you said, it's bigger than that. It's not just about hurting him.
Yeah.
It's like she just went in there and was just like, you're really broke. And you're like, you're a shitty business person.
Yes.
That dude's going to get all flustered because that's the stuff he cares about.
Yeah.
But I just don't think this is the way to do it, especially since, I've been part of people who've clapped back on him a million times. He's constantly fat shaming other people. And all he ends up doing is they're sloughing off the fact that people call him fat, or they're like coming up with some sort of bogus doctor's note saying that he's in perfect health.
Exactly.
So, it almost doesn't even matter because you're not even sticking in his craw the way you want to.
Exactly.
So
we should all just keep calling him a criminal and a murderer because that's what he's doing. He's murdering people by his inadequacies. Okay. So moving on. You have been fundraising so much, and I love the idea of Eats for EMTs. You have a GoFundMe page, so it's not just it's not only if you're in New York. That was hard for me to say. So can you talk about how that came about? I mean, I know you work with, the fire department of New York. I know you work with all the frontline people all the time. Can you give a little bit of a history about why you wanted to do something specific for them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, actually, to tell you the story of Eats for EMTs, I'll just quickly take one step back to the first relief effort that I did in quarantine, which we actually ended up calling Si So Puede. That was about people sewing masks and hospital gowns for the shortage. And that was before people, everyone now is doing it. But
Right.
This was, first week of quarantine in March. I saw a lot of my friends who are nurses looking for masks, and I also saw a lot of my friends who are small businesses or fashion freelancers that were out of a job. And I'm like, this is a way to put these two things together, and invested in my own money because now I had all this money laying around from canceled trips and canceled.
I know, it's amazing how much money I'm saving. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I hired a bunch of fashion freelancers to then make so I can help them out. And so I hired a bunch of fashion freelancers to make masks and send them to a lot of the New York area hospitals. We had about 3,000 masks and hospital gowns that went out in a matter of a couple of weeks.
At a time where it was really critical and like things were not available to people.
Yes, it was at the very beginning. And the thing is, I started to realize that everyone else, things that are so much bigger than me, were stepping up. And, the mask situation is something I could never personally get my hands around. And so, about $25,000 worth of stuff, and then kind of closed that operation down. Started a Facebook group for people to network with each other, so that can kind of continue on. But I wanted to come up with something else that I could sort of help people with, because I love that idea of being able to infuse much needed revenue into small businesses while also serving a purpose for our frontline workers. And because I had worked in politics for a really long time, I knew some labor union folks to call. And my very first job in New York actually was working for SCIU, the healthcare union. And I talked to the mayor's fund, I talked to these unions, I saw that so many people were, again, stepping up to feed all of the frontline workers in the hospitals. And they realized no one was talking about EMTs. We were talking about just the hospitals specifically.
Right.
And forgetting the fact that FDNY EMS is, they're 4,000 strong across the city. They're consistently overburdened. They take the bulk of the 911 calls, but they're also historically the lowest paid first responders in New York City.
I did not know that.
And I thought, this is an opportunity to really help these guys that it might be overlooked because you're not thinking of FDNY as being something that COVID-19 is going to be really affecting. But it absolutely is. And these folks are in very small station houses, working 24/7, putting themselves out there, responding to all the 911 calls in their ambulances. And I spoke to their local FDNY EMS union and pitched them the idea. I put it on Facebook saying, okay, guys, like, here's my second idea. going to call it Eats for EMTs. Who knows, small businesses that are dying, that might need maybe like a $500 or $1,000 order could really make or break them. And, who do you know? And within a matter of hours, I got a ton of people suggested. And actually, one of the folks that run Shake Shack gave me a call, and I bluntly told them, "You're too big for me to worry about."
Good for you. Was this before or after they got the money or gave the money back?
This is before they gave the money back. But I will say though, I'm gonna come to the defense on this.
All right. Because listen, I love a concrete. So
I will come to the defense on one thing. So I actually ended up kicking off Eats for EMTs with Shake Shack because they called me first, and I did have a very long conversation with the executive chef. Again, how I thought they were too big, and that's not what I was trying to accomplish. And I need something smaller. And but I understand that they have a real New York story and started as a kiosk in Madison Square Park, which is my community board, which I serve on in New York City government. So I get it, and I thought it was a great story. But when I started to talk to them a little bit more about how they are scaling back, et cetera, so they were getting kind of hit hard. But what they were able to do for me that I couldn't ask of smaller businesses was to do things basically at cost, and to take on the burden to take on the burden to go into areas that I wasn't able to find other restaurants, or to get things in massive bulk. It's like, to kick this off, like they could easily do hundreds of burgers in a day,
right?
To go all over the place. And that's exactly what they did, actually. And so what I thought was really amazing is that the people who run it themselves, and so like this executive chef took his minivan and picked up a manager at a Shake Shack and drove hundreds and hundreds of burgers around the South Bronx for me himself.
Wow.
And that was actually really cool. So, I mean, they didn't want press. I was on New York One, Fox and Friends, like CBS, NBC. I got all kinds of press about this when it first launched. It's why we were able to raise, nearly $30,000
Incredible.
pretty quickly. And I reached out to them like, do you need me to talk to your PR people? Like, we don't care. That's not what this is about.
Well, that's good.
I appreciated that. So, I don't want to trash talk them for being a big business, but I am more excited about the fact that I've had over a dozen small mom and pops come forward that I have found through all different kinds of ways in the power of social media, where those $1,000 orders were make or break. And they've been just so happy to help. And the EMTs are so incredibly touched by our efforts, and by the, having a nice hot meal to have waiting for them to grab and go when they've been on shift for days. Some are not even going home.
They're not. I know. And they keep interviewing them. And I'm like, just stop talking to them. Just let them have a minutes of rest in the back of their car. So is this still something, was it limited time, or were you able to extend it? Can people still give to this if they want to?
Yes. So the GoFundMe is called Eats for EMTs. And it is still active. However, today, so it's EMS week, and today our sort of our last orders went out, hypothetically. I raised just enough to get through the entire list of the station houses citywide, which is really incredible, frankly. So if we raise more money, then I'll go back around through the list. But right now, so please donate. I'm happy to do this as long as I get money coming in. But right now, kind of stalled out with the momentum.
But if you're somebody watching who actually has $1,000, which who knows, this could get to somebody who has $1,000, that this is a great idea, even if it's not through this GoFundMe or whatever. You can order, you can find out where your local firehouse is, and you can place an order, a large order for those people, and with one of your local restaurants.
Yes, I think that that's the takeaway. We have to, no pun intended on takeaway, but that really people need to remember to shop local and help their local restaurants. This is something that they can really do. And a lot of restaurants are already shipping out tons of stuff and partnering with hospitals. that's amazing, but I have been avoiding them because if you're already doing that much business, you don't need me. So look for the people that don't know how to keep their lights on or possibly don't have their lights on during quarantine at all. That happened with me. I called a couple of friends I knew were running restaurants that are closed because they couldn't afford to stay open during quarantine. And I offered this program to them and I said, if you could come back into the kitchen for a day, would you be willing to do this? Do you need the money? And they're like so excited to have the offer. They went and reopened for the day, opened the kitchen for one day just to do this because they really needed the money. So, I'm happy to do this, but it's also inspired a lot of folks, my friends all over the country, to do something similar. And I'm very happy to that I've been able to inspire people. But I'm a community organizer by trade and also in my heart. I always have been, and it's very, very hard to be a bystander and stuck on my couch. So, I'm constantly trying to raise money and try to help people. And on my next thing that I'm helping my friends' organizations do is now ship PPE and things to Navajo Nation. They're in desperate need. So it's like I'm looking for the people that are in the most desperate need and are being constantly overlooked. And putting my efforts there, because that is where you're going to get the most bang for your buck, and that's where it's going to be most appreciated. So whether you have $10 or you have $10,000, think of that. Think about the people who really, really need it, and not just lopping it on top of a national organization already raising money.
Right. As great as all these organizations are, this trickle down theory also pertains to giving. So I want to talk about another neighborhood. I want to talk about the Sunset Strip. I want to talk about the Troubadour, which has said that they might need to close their doors, and they have a GoFundMe going right now. I know you have spent a lot of time there. And you know where some bodies are buried is all I'm trying to say.
I'm saving kind of zero money, honestly, during I might be spending substantially more money in quarantine because of all these GoFundMes. I'm extremely passionate about saving places. Like I said, I have my GoFundMes and my projects that I'm trying to save people in New York, but I have a lot of friends obviously in LA. And if we weren't in quarantine, I would be at the Sunset Marquee right now in West Hollywood, getting ready to go see my favorite bands, Faith No More and System of a Down at Bank of America Arena, but I'm not.
Right.
And I had a lot of shows planned for 2020 and coronavirus got in my way. But small venues are really important, and as you know, because you have an incredible voice, an incredible band. And I used to have a band in New York.
Yes, same.
And
yes,
so
incredible voice, incredible band. Yes,
those small venues, are my heart and soul. And the Rainbow on the Sunset Strip is laying off a lot of their folks. They had a GoFundMe, and I don't think it's going very well. So, my sister and I were actually just texting about it yesterday. We're like, the Rainbow cannot close. Like, it's extremely important. I remember reading about the Rainbow in Hammer of the Gods, the Led Zeppelin book, when I was a kid, being like, one day I'm gonna go to LA, and then it turns out that it's like my favorite place. I've literally had like every birthday there when I go to California. Their chicken soup saved me from like multiple times I've been extremely sick. Their food's amazing. I've met Motorhead there.
It is wild, and it's something that you can't really. Now that CBGB's is gone in New York, there's no real way to describe it. Like it is unlike any other place in the world. Even CBGB's wasn't really a diner attached to a crazy venue, and like that's what the feel. It's not. It doesn't look like a diner. It looks like a lounge, but it feels like a diner where everyone hangs out there all the time. I mean, it really is crazy. I just want to pitch something right before we leave. I think that you and I could come up with a really crazy fun fundraising Zoom event and have a big girls karaoke. Let's save the Sunset Strip. And
my
it should be
God.
like me, you, and every other fat chick we know, just like singing metal stuff. And let's do it for charity. Let's figure it out.
love this. I love this. I love this. Because we do have a lot of rock chicks. We have a lot of people who can sing. But also, if we can open it beyond the plus girls, I have a lot of people I think that could be willing to help, because the Sunset Strip is a cultural icon for not only rock, but for so many people in the entertainment industry, no matter what kind of music you like.
Yeah, and just coming up. I mean, just people who, it's thrilling to watch people at the very beginning, and how effective they can be, even if there's only 15 people in the crowd. I've seen unreal things at all the venues on the Strip, like these performances where I'm like, wow, are you going to be famous a year from now? But even if you're not, this is the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's like whether you're the Doors or you're Greta Von Fleet playing like to 6 people at the Viper Room or something. It's like and then you go on to play Coachella. It's like those things that start right there, but it goes beyond the history of it. But really, the Sunset Strip itself, it needs to keep its character. It is something that I talk a lot about cultural landmarks in New York a lot from my work in government. And I would say if I was in LA, I really call that a cultural landmark. That
Without doubts.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
But also at its core, these are really amazing people who work there in the service industry. The food is amazing at the Rainbow. The drinks are fantastic over at the old Red Rock, which I think is called Social now. And, these are things that are just cool, and they're really great small businesses that even if they didn't have celebrities in them or that kind of history to it, I'd still really need to save, because we also need to save the places for artists. I mean, that's why we keep talking about small businesses and artist spaces and stuff in New York too. It's like, this is what makes life worth living.
Exactly.
And so if they all go under in this time, then what is going to happen of our urban landscape. So I'm 100% in.
All right, we're gonna work it out, everybody. We're going to work it out. So watch this space. Thank you so much for being here. People can find you at Foxy Roxy Fashion and at SLiNK Magazine. You like to post sometimes too. And I can announce that Reagan Chastain will be here next week to talk a little bit about, she has a clapback seminar. She's not calling it that. I'm calling it that. On June 4th. And it's basically like, if you're fat and you're sick of seeing people talk shit, what she wants to train you on the really like smart, successful clapbacks you can have for people who think they know when they just don't. So definitely come back next week. Renee, thank you. It's so lovely to see your face.
Thank you so much.
You're gorgeous. I love you.
I didn't know I was going to shoot to me again. I didn't have time for
By the way, amazing cook, amazing quarantine cook, and I don't understand if she wants a husband. She might not want one, but if someone needs to make her a wife, because she's unbelievable.
I guess I'm accepting offers. British and Irish accents should come to the front.
Should
of the
apply.
I'm enjoying some lovely sour worms right now.
Perfect. Awesome. Lady, it's so good to see you. We'll see you next week at Plus This. Thanks, guys.